I went up to him and said, hey, I'm a singer. I was about 9 years old. And he was playing a county fair. It was right before he really had his big records.
She was 13 when she made the entire world stop and listen. Just a small kid with a grown woman's voice, standing on stage and belting out Delta Dawn as if she'd memorized every word. Tanya Tucker, a fireball in boots, was Nashville's first encounter with someone like her. Behind the plaudits, however, was something colder, something darker. The vultures began to circle as soon as she rose. Men twice her age, industrial gatekeepers. Legends have demons in their veins and secrets hidden beneath their smiles. Tanya was a teenager with a stormy voice, but no one ever questioned if she felt safe. Because back then, country music did not defend its daughters. It dressed them up, pushed them outside, and hoped they remained silent. Tanya did this for a long time. She grinned despite the trauma. Through domineering relationships, addictions, and abuse, she became tabloid gold, a punchline in back rooms, and a warning to younger females who dared to live life loudly. And still, she sung. She survived. What about now? She's finished holding secrets that weren't hers. For the first time in decades, Tanya Tucker is revealing the truth about her connection with Glen Campbell, as well as the industry that made it possible. The Grand Ole Opry may have made her a star, but she was never treated like one, and she's finally saying it. What she's revealing is not only uncomfortable, but also devastating. Tanya was left to rot in silence at a family-run business. But what is her story? What's her truth? It will come out whether Nashville likes it or not. After hearing what happened behind the Opry's velvet ropes, you'll have a new perspective on country royalty. Tanya Tucker was more than just a young girl with a dream. She became a phenomenon the instant she opened her mouth. Tanya was just 13 years old when Delta Dawn first aired in 1972. She did not sound like a youngster. She did not move like a youngster. And the country music industry, desperate for a new phenomenon, latched on with both hands. Audiences couldn't believe someone so young could convey so much passion, and record labels wasted no time. Tanya was signed, packaged, and performing at a rate that most adults couldn't handle. However, the industry saw potential rather than stardom. She was marketed as the little girl with the big voice, but that voice swiftly became a weapon, not just in song, but also in expectation.
To take you to his mansion in the sky.
Producers, managers, and even journalists treated her as if she were an experienced adult, long before she possessed the necessary emotional tools. Her schedule was rigorous. The interviews were unending, and the guys surrounding her, powerful, charming, and always on guard, didn't mind that she was a child. In their universe, the spotlight erased age. Behind the scenes, Tanya was forced to mature way too quickly. There were no teenage errors, no safe areas to fall apart, and no time to discover who she was outside of the spotlight. She was taught from the start that achievement had a cost, and that cost was silence. If she wanted to continue singing, she had to follow the rules. Smile on stage, stay silent about it, never complain, never mention any names. And in Nashville, stillness was not only expected, but also enforced. Tanya wasn't only a rising star. She was being groomed to survive in a world that was not designed to protect her. Tanya Tucker had already lived more than most individuals twice her age when she turned 21. She had weathered the storm of early success, endured arduous tours, and struggled for respect in an industry that still considered her as a novelty act. But nothing would have a greater impact on her or haunt her than her connection with country music legend Glen Campbell. Glen was almost double her age when they met. By then, he had established himself as an American icon, famous for songs like Rhinestone Cowboy and Wichita Lineman, but also for his wild conduct, substance abuse, and volatile temper. Tanya, still young and seeking love, fame, and approval, fell hard and fast. The partnership immediately gained attention, not only for the music they created together, but also for the age difference and the chaos that's surrounding them. To the public, they were the it pair in country music. Behind closed doors, the story was considerably harsher. Tanya would later speak openly about what happened behind the glamour. She recalled times that were not only toxic, but terrifying. Glen, she claimed, was controlling, possessive, and emotionally unpredictable. He allegedly directed what she wore, who she saw, and how she acted. The control was not subtle. Tanya said that he once damaged her windshield with a golf club during a quarrel. The violence was more than just physical, it was psychological. The man who brought her on stage was also the man who humiliated her in private, made her doubt her value, and held her bound to him by a horrible mix of fear and obsession. The most terrifying aspect was that Tanya felt entirely alone in it. The people around them were aware of what was going on. The crew, handlers, and executives all noticed the signals, but no one dared criticize Glen Campbell. He was excessively powerful, too famous, too protected. Tanya endured in silence, performing alongside a man who was both her partner and her prisoner. For most country luminaries, the Grand Ole Opry is a second home, a revered platform where careers are honored, milestones are celebrated, and legacies are established. Tanya Tucker, on the other hand, found the Opry to be less welcoming than it was to others. Despite her early popularity and the evident influence of her voice on the country music genre, Tanya was never fully accepted by the institution that professed to represent tradition, devotion, and respect. There was always a calm space between her and the Opry. While she was occasionally allowed to appear on its stage, she was never afforded the same level of attention or respect as her male counterparts, many of whom had similar scandals or even worse reputations. What's the difference? Tanya was a woman who wouldn't play nice. She was outspoken, raw, and unpredictable. She did not match the stereotype of the buttoned-up country sweetheart. And in the eyes of the Opry's gatekeepers, this made her dangerous. Whispers followed her around the backstage hallways, claiming she was too crazy, too loud, and too scandalous, as if surviving abuse and addiction rendered her less deserving of credit. While males in the industry were forgiven and brought back, Tanya was excluded from the inner group. She had all the talent, history, and hits, but she never received the invitation that truly counted. Tanya believes the Grand Ole Opry was never the sanctuary it pretended to be. It was the only door in Nashville that never completely opened. Tanya Tucker wore her quiet as armor for decades. In an industry where speaking up could cost her everything, she concealed the darkest aspects of her tale beneath a brilliant smile and a powerful stage presence. But in recent years, something changed. With maturity came a sense of power, not from the acceptance of organizations like the Opry, but from knowing she had made it through everything. Finally, she's decided to talk. Tanya has begun to expose in a series of raw, transparent interviews how much sorrow was hidden behind her stardom. She has freely discussed the emotional and psychological trauma she received throughout her relationship with Glenn Campbell. She detailed how he exploited her, alienated her, and made her feel useless, even while the public praised them as the country's golden marriage. "He broke me down," she said, and nobody said a word. It wasn't simply one relationship, it was the entire culture that turned away. What's even more heartbreaking is how the industry handled her afterwards. Glenn was nonetheless honored despite his public outbursts. When he died, tributes came in. Tanya, meanwhile, was left to recuperate quietly, with no acknowledgement from the organizations that had formerly used her as a poster child. Despite her significant contributions to country music, she has expressed dissatisfaction with her exclusion from big events and her inability to be admitted into the Grand Ole Opry. These latest discoveries are not intended to burn bridges, but rather to give light. Tanya Tucker is no longer simply relaying her story. She is stating the truth, and by doing so, she is finally forcing the country music industry to confront its long history of silence, favoritism, and deep-rooted unfairness. Tanya Tucker's story is not an isolated incident. It is part of a wider, dangerous pattern that has long plagued Nashville. For decades, the country music industry has maintained a polite, polished facade that conceals the true cost of success, particularly for women. The quiet surrounding Tanya's abuse was not an accident. It was the norm. In an industry based on appearances, discomfort is hidden and reputations are safeguarded, but only if you're the appropriate kind of artist. The habit of quiet in country music is particularly harmful to women. Male stars are allowed to fall, rehabilitate, and be recognized again, whereas female artists are held to unattainable standards. One error, a personal scandal, a nasty split, a public tantrum, and they're labeled difficult, unstable, or unmarketable. Tanya was not the only one. Other women, such Naomi Judd and Casey Musgraves, have spoken out about the suffocating pressure to comply, the lack of support, and the double standards that govern everything from radio airplay to award acceptance. Tanya stands out since she experienced everything at such an early age. She has faced scrutiny, shame, and erasure, and she is still standing. But her survival does not justify the system that attempted to break her. It merely shows how many others were not so fortunate. Nashville's quiet was not merely complicity. It was a premeditated strategy to protect powerful men while punishing women who dared to speak up. And now that Tanya's voice is increasing, the stillness has no place to hide. After decades of silence and survival, Tanya Tucker returned to country music with a purpose. Her 2019 album, While I'm Livin', produced by Brandi Carlile and Shooter Jennings, was a gritty, soulful message. It was not pursuing chart positions. It was telling her the truth. That fact garnered her 2 Grammy Awards, bringing her full circle as a lady who had been disregarded for the majority of her career. But Tanya's comeback was not for vengeance. It was about taking back what had always been hers: the respect, the recognition, the right to be seen without any shadows. She demonstrated that she never required professional approval. She had her own voice, story, and admirers. Tanya Tucker reinvented her ending in an industry that sought to dismiss her. And in doing so, she reminded everyone that legends do not need permission. They just need a microphone. Tanya Tucker's journey is more than simply a country music story. It's about survival, silence, and the hard road to truth. She was groomed before she had a chance to mature, thrust into the spotlight before she understood how to defend herself, and left to navigate the darkest corners of fame without a lifeline. The industry adored her voice, but never protected the girl behind it. For years, the Grand Ole Opry, the very institution that cherishes country tradition, decided to look away. But Tanya did not break. She persevered. She came back. And now she's revealing the facts that the industry believed would remain hidden. What she is revealing raises a terrible question. How many others like her were eaten up and spit out in silence? How many people were neglected, deleted, or left behind because they did not meet Nashville's standards of perfection? Tanya's legacy extends beyond the songs she sung. It's about the fortitude required to explain what really happened, to demand the best, to demonstrate to younger generations of artists that they are not required to remain silent in order to exist. If Tanya Tucker's voice influenced country music, her truth could save it. If this story moved you, please share it. Leave a comment below. And don't forget to like and subscribe for more in-depth looks into the tales Nashville didn't want told. Because of the truth, it always makes its way onto the stage.